One of the most powerful instruments that we have at our disposal is our mind. And with that comes with how we see ourselves, how we speak to ourselves, how we treat ourselves, and how we treat, see, believe about ourselves literally affects every single thing that we do in business and in our careers. So, in this episode, we're going to dive a little deep into mindset triggers because I feel like these are very, very influential in how you proceed going forward. Come listen.
Welcome to the Behind Her Brand podcast with your host, Kimberly Spencer. Every week, join Kimberly and her guest for inspiring interviews with passionate business builders, corporate leaders, and catalysts of change. Plus, we will be sharing business and career building strategies and tools that you can use to grow. So let's dive into today's episode.
Okay, so as I shared, we are going to talk a little bit about the mindset. And I know that that word sometimes gets thrown around so much, like have a powerful mindset, speak affirmations, and all these different things that sound great. Sometimes they motivate us. And I know that I myself am a real big quote person, so I believe in that, and I believe in having a positive outlook on things. But I also know, too, that I myself, at different points of my own journey in being a businesswoman and being a wife and a mother and all these different roles that we play, have dealt with mindset issues. And they come up at the most inconvenient times, right? Whenever we're doing really good and all of a sudden there's that little voice that tries to tell you that you're not good enough, you're not this, you're not that. And oftentimes, sometimes if we're not at a good place in our life, that little voice can stump us. It can stop you. It can halt anything that you're doing. And then all of a sudden, a story starts playing out that oftentimes isn't true about how you see yourself or who you are. So I want to walk through a couple of different mindset stuff that I have encountered in my time in working with different people and things that I hear quite often. And I'm going to challenge you to ask yourself, do any of these speak to you? Do any of these speak to things that maybe you've said, maybe you've thought, maybe you've experienced yourself? Okay. So here we go. One thing I hear often is, can I really make it, Kim? Can I really do this? Am I good enough? Am I good enough to really launch this? Am I really good enough to be able to excel in my career in this particular position? Here's another one. Who would really work with me? Can I really do this? Oh, I don't think I'll ever be successful. Man, nothing I ever do works out. What if no one buys from me? Here's another big one. And this is another podcast that we're doing later. And this one is, I'm not as good as her, or maybe it's him, depending on who's listening. I don't have the education to do this. I don't speak or look like her. I was always told I wouldn't make it. Every time good things start happening, something bad creeps up. What if they don't like me? What if they don't accept me? And I can go on and on and on. The list literally can go on and on. And so ask yourself, have you ever said to yourself, like when you're sitting there contemplating starting something or going for a promotion at your job, am I good enough for this? Will they really hire me? Will they really see me in this position? Or we look at people in our field, whether, again, business or career, and it's like, man, I don't look like them, or I don't have the kind of education they have, or man, look at the audience and how they always respond to that person. Like, I don't have that type of influence. These are different things that so often we may say about ourselves. These are different things that sometimes will come up in our thought process. And oftentimes when we give room for these type of thoughts, what typically tends to happen is we create a narrative to support that thought. When you start asking yourself, can I really make it? And you sit there and you think about that and you let that marinate, what tends to happen is all the different supporting reasons on why you may not be able to make it. It may be, you know what, I don't have the education. Oh, I don't have the time. Oh, I don't have the kind of audience they have. Oh, I don't have this. I don't have that. And it starts becoming literally unhealthy, but more importantly, that initial thought, that initial trigger now has supporting cast around it. Okay. And when you have a supporting cast of naysayers, a supporting cast that's literally feeding this thought, you start walking in that thought. It becomes, you know what? This may not be a good time for this. I'm not really ready for that. I'm not that qualified. And then now you're walking out the initial thing that came to mind that was a trigger, but also it was a hindrance point. Okay. Like, for example, here's another thing I hear so often. It's, Kim, nothing I ever launch or do seems to work out, especially the way that I want it. And so then it goes that the supporting cast comes out. Maybe people didn't like me. Maybe I'm not that influential. Maybe I'm not this. Maybe I'm not that. Instead of maybe thinking, you know what? Maybe I didn't launch this in the right season. Maybe the audience that I'm trying to attract wasn't the right one. Or maybe, and then fill in the blank of something that is actually more positive and actually more forward thinking than something negative about yourself. The reason why I wanted to talk about this today is because it literally saddens me in the same way as the other triggers that we're talking about do, because I love seeing people grow. I love seeing people excel. I love seeing people literally do the things they never thought that they can do, because our mind literally can limit us. It can stop us because we feed our mind different things. So you got to ask yourself, what am I feeding myself every day? Am I feeding myself that, you know what, I am good enough? And not just from an affirmation standpoint or positive standpoint, now build a new supporting cast around that statement. Not just saying, hey, I'm good enough, but think about that. You know what? I'm good enough because I worked hard for this. I put in the time. I put in the effort. I put in this. I put in that. Like, create a cast, a supporting cast of not naysayers, obviously, but of people that champion a healthy thought process. Okay. I know that sounds kind of crazy to say build that cast, but you know what? Honestly, when times get rough and they get hard, and they will, I don't care how successful you are, things get bumpy along the journey, no matter what. You have to remember how to feed the things that are positive, how to feed the things that are going to help you literally walk through those hard moments. Like, for example, whenever I hear this, I don't have the education for this. That may be truth. You may not have the education, but can you get the education? Can you read some information? Can you tap into some resources so you can build up your knowledge bank? Does that have to be your period? I don't have the education, so I'm going to stop. I'm not going to move. I'm not going to try to go for that promotion. Can you share about your expertise, your experience? Do you have that? Maybe you don't have the academic education, but maybe you have real life experience that you can use. You see, there's always a way to build a new supporting cast around a positive thought. Here's another big one, okay? I am not as good as her, or maybe if you're a guy listening, as good as him. And that goes back to worth. It goes back to what I mentioned in one of our other podcasts about an exercise that I will still share with on this one as well, is make a list of the things that you bring to the table. We often sometimes don't really think and comb through the things that we actually bring to the table. Like, for example, when I first started in my business, y'all, I am I'm no different than most in this space, where I did look at everybody and I was like, oh my gosh, that person's so much more polished. They speak much more articulate. They dress more this and they look this way, and oh my gosh, their content and everything. And it became overwhelming. And I was so young in my business that I thought I had to be like all these different things, to where I stopped being who I was. And I had to really challenge my own mindset of, why do I not think that how I am showing up is good enough? Why do I feel like I need to look or speak or do like this person? Why am I attaching worth to what I'm seeing that's outside of me? And when I really started looking at that question, or questions, I should say, it challenged me to really pause again. And I'm a big reflective kind of person, and really ask myself, what do I bring to the table? So I dumped it on paper. And this is not something, and let me just share this. There is nothing wrong with tooting your own horn, as long as it's not prideful or egotistic, or in an ego way, I should say. There's nothing wrong with saying, you know what, I'm proud of myself. Like, I have accomplished this. I have done this. I have done that. Like, there is nothing wrong with tooting your own horn. And I am telling you this from someone that used to not do that. Like, I believe in celebrating a win. There's no big or small win, a win. If I close a client that I'm really excited about working with, we may go out to dinner to celebrate. I may have a glass of wine with my husband, whatever that might be, because I'm proud of myself. Okay. So, and what I'm sharing with you are things that I'm doing now, but I did not do before. And that was tied to my mindset. It was tied to my worth. And when I really started working through that and really honoring the woman that I've become, the education that I have gained, and not necessarily academic, from real life, real experiences, real ups and downs. When I really started honoring the things that I had to grow through, the things that I had to learn through, the things that I had to literally face. And I thought about all the lessons I had to learn and the things that I had to keep peeling back to keep growing into the new person I am. In doing that, I had to also challenge my thoughts. I had to say, you know what? It is okay for me to be successful. I define what that looks like for me. I had to get to that place. I had to also get out of the mindset of, what if they don't accept me? What if they don't like me? Because I've been told that before. Well, Kim, you're too soft-spoken. Kim, you're too quiet. Kim, you're too this. Kim, you should be wearing red bottoms if you want them to take you seriously. I was told all these different type of things. So what happened is I would not show up at places because I felt like I would not be accepted. I felt like I would not be liked because I did not fit what people were telling me I should be. And when I started to really challenge that mindset and said, okay, why am I caring so much about this? And really remembering who I am, I didn't show up in red bottoms, but I showed up in some comfortable shoes. I may not wear a power suit every day, but I wear clothes that make me feel powerful. When I show up, I'm confident in who I am. I may not always be perfect in my speech. I may flub on my podcast. I may flub when I do speeches. But you know what? It's okay, because I'm not trying to be like anyone, and I'm not trying to be perfect. And here's the thing, and I'm going to challenge you on this, is to write down the things that really, really make you stand out. Write down the things of your worth. Write down the different mindsets that you need to challenge. And then ask yourself, do I have a supporting cast that's naysaying, that's not supportive, that's hindering me around this mindset? Am I building up this group around this mindset that's keeping me held back? And if you are, create a new cast of characters. Create one that's supportive, one that champions you, one that high fives you whenever you need it. But create that around you. Now, that's all mindset stuff, right? But at the same token, as a side note, create a cast of people around you that will do the same thing. Okay? Because in those moments when it does get low, in those moments when you do feel like, man, nothing is coming together, you do need some people around you that are going to be those people that will speak into you. And they also will challenge those mindsets. They'll remind you of who you are. They'll remind you of the things that you've experienced. And that is very important when it comes to growth. Because if you're asking yourself, well, how does this have to do with excelling in my career? How does that have to do with excelling in my business? It has everything to do with it, because every new level requires a different level of who you are. We've heard that quote before, but it also requires a different level of thinking, a different type of mindset, a different way of looking at things, and even a different way of looking at yourself. Because as you grow, you got to also look at, okay, where am I growing to personally? How am I showing up professionally? It's a different way of being. Okay. And so if you're still stuck in, man, am I good enough? You are going to literally halt everything that you're trying to do to move forward. Okay. So to rehash, I want to challenge you to review again. What do you bring to the table? Review your worth. Look at your supporting cast around both sides of those thoughts, the negative and the positive, and reframe it. Okay. Reframe those conversations, because you want to be able to support healthy thinking, and you want to eliminate the negative thinking, okay? Because you got to see yourself as you are. So I hope this encourages you. I hope that it inspires you to take a minute, grab a cup of coffee, tea, water, whatever it is that you drink, and take a moment and really do this exercise, okay? So thank you again for joining us for this episode of Behind Her Brand. And you can visit us at our website at www.behindherbrand.net, where you'll be able to access this podcast and so many others that we have available for you.